And welcome back to BFG, Barely Functional Gamers. Well, we just got back from the ToeJam and Earl launch party, and that was a lot of fun. We got to meet Greg.
Greg Johnson, yeah. Greg Johnson, the original creator of ToeJam and Earl. And all the other rest of the development team for Back in the Groove.
Yeah, it was Matt, Co. There were a couple other people. I just can't remember names right now.
Yeah, it's early.
Yes.
We still have jobs, so went straight to bed after the party. So we just recorded this video real quick. But we'll break down everything that happened this Sunday on our podcast. Otherwise, we're just showing the recording of the panel and Q&A in its entirety. Hope you enjoy.
Yeah. Hope that we are going to entertain and delight you tonight.
Can you take pictures?
You can take pictures, yes, of course. Greg, come hang out here. Or you want to eat first?
Oh, no. Who came the furthest?
Who came the furthest?
Well, where's the San Diego folks?
Right.
Yeah?
They came from the UK.
Whoa!
Whoa! I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah, that was
When did they show up? No. Who are they?
That was for the Saturday. Yeah? Wow.
Long Beach.
San Diego, Long Beach. Wow. That's people who don't know. California is a very large state. That's a very long trip. That's like going from. That's like what, Washington D.C. to New York City, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. So,
Yeah, I like that.
Did I win?
I think San Diego is a little further, right?
San Diego is further. Like 2 hours.
Okay.
And then we need Co and
I don't know
Shaw
about
and
them.
Nathan.
I'm actually from here.
Well, yeah. So we have questions down here. Everybody knows questions.
Did you fly?
So if anyone hasn't or
just-
doesn't know,
It's just a
there's a
drive
bunch of
from
index
my
cards over
place
there.
here.
Take a marker, write your questions on it. We have questions for Z-Quad box right here.
Yeah.
Actually, no, you gotta sit there. That's the throne. Good for you, yeah. Yeah.
Great. All right. The throne is got it. Nice.
Yeah. You can hold on to ToeJam or Earl.
Do we get to ask questions too?
Yeah, you can ask everything. This is your show.
Awesome. Yeah. So first, thank you everybody for coming. This is pretty amazing. Like you're the family, right? You're like That's funny. Let's have some applause for my wife, Irene. I'm really embarrassed her. Can you do that? Actually, just got married a few months ago. Yeah. Anyway, so this is very different than the other events. I just came from GDC, and I get, it's always a mix of interests, and it's, there are people that know ToeJam and Earl, and when we wear our sweatshirts or our T-shirts, we get recognized. But it's rare to have a group where everybody is like ToeJam and Earl into TJD. So this is a lot of fun for us, and so feel free to throw any questions you want at us. I'm also particularly interested in people's stories. One of the funnest things about making this game is hearing how we connect to you. How your experience connects to what we've made and what it's meant to you in your lives. And if you feel like you want to share some of your stories, it might be kind of fun actually for everybody to hear some of that and hear when you played the game and who you played it with and why on earth did you come all this way tonight to this thing. So we could start there, but I'm not sure if there's a plan or how you want to do it.
There's a very small plan, which is that so we're gonna do this panel for a minute, an hour and a half. And then we're going to have mingling, play the new game, we brought some of the old games, hang out with Greg. We'll also have Greg will be signing autographs and signing merch at the end if you brought anything you want Greg or any of the dev team to sign it. By the way, in case you don't know who the dev team is, we have Greg here, we have Nathan, our lead artist, we have myself, I'm Matt, the producer, and then we have Co and Shaw, our two amazing engineers here.
Yeah.
And Carolyn's here as well on the ops side. Operations. We're doing autographs after this and hanging out. So we have some questions here for Z-Quad. Questions for Z-Quad.
Yeah. Oh, and also, I know you're all ToeJam and Earl fans, but I'm sure you're also just gamers in general too. And I've been an indie developer since the early '80s, so still doing it. And if you guys have any any questions, or you want to talk about the game industry, or indie development or anything like that, also feel free. This is your chance to throw whatever you want at me or at us in general. And we've all, this whole team has had different kinds of experiences, and you might have a particular interest in engineering or in art. And did you introduce Kinnan too? What? Oh yeah, Kinnan back there. Raise your hand. I don't know if you got maybe Kinnan. He's actually a fan of our game, and he came to us and said, "Hey, can I be involved in what you guys are doing?" And we were so impressed with him that. We said, sure, come on in, and he programmed the hyperpunk zone for us. So. Anyway, so feel free to ask whatever. Right. We got questions already.
All right, great. So let's see. I haven't looked through these. None of these have been pre-sorted, so let's just dive in. Can you put original ToeJam and Earl 1 sound effects into the new games?
Sort of yes and sort of no. We can't take the actual audio file sound effects from the original games because we don't own those. But I did pretty much all of those sound effects myself with a mic just like this one. Late at night in a little office after everybody had gone home because I didn't want to bother people. In this game we actually started off by doing the audio. We thought we would, improve it and do higher fidelity and have better sound effects, and we started doing that, and some of our fans from one of the early versions heard what we were doing, and we got some immediate feedback of no. It has to sound terrible, just like you did in game one. We want you to do it again, just like you did. And so I did. So I grabbed a really cruddy microphone, or I did it into my, sometimes into my cell phone, all of the tra-la-la, and all of the, except I didn't, thankfully, actually I did do at first the hula girl again, so that was me in game one. I'm sorry to tell you that. And that was so creepy. We got a good friend of mine, Genevieve Goings, who, if any of you happen to know, have seen Choo Choo Soul on the Disney Channel. She's Choo Choo Soul with Genevieve, so she did the hula dancer and a few of the other female characters in there. And then, actually in this new game, some of the team did a few of the characters too. Do you remember who did what?
So I did Geek Jam, and Code did Evo, and Connie did the Shady Lady.
Right.
And
here, give us some Geek Jam.
Geek Jam's very nasally. It's like, hey, over here. Well, speaking of that, are there any Earthlings inspired by real life people?
Inspired by real life people. Well, not specific people. And you guys help me out too if you think of something I'm forgetting to say, because a lot of this stuff I can't remember all the details of it. But
the UFO is based on a real life character. It's from Doki Doki.
Oh, is it?
It depends on how. Yeah, Alien Jeff. I'm not sure how much you want to call it real life, but yes, that was a character from Doki Doki Universe.
The shopping cart lady is definitely real.
Yeah.
Over by her multiple times.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of those definitely come from real life experience, but there is a bunch of archetypes in the new game. Yeah, how many of you here have had a chance to play the new one? Yeah, sure. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's pretty close to everybody. So, yeah. So I'm sure you've seen, you know, the what have we got? We've got the internet troll and the right, the texting person and the selfie woman that wants to take her selfies with you, and there's the rabbit fan. Find my game. Right. And there's the person that's what do we call it when it's collecting money?
Clipboard.
Oh yeah, that's right. Clipboard lady. Yeah, so there's a little.
That's based off of real life, right?
Yeah, that's based on everybody on Salon.
Right, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so a lot of the characters we had an opportunity to make a little bit of social commentary. It's not very heavy-handed, obviously, in this game, and we're not out to really make big serious statements, but it seemed like a fun opportunity to sort of poke fun at our society and who we are, and so we got a lot of great suggestions. Has anybody here been on our forum? Because that's okay. Yeah, that hasn't gotten a lot of activity recently. So a few people. We had when we started this project, where's Kinnan? Yeah. So big thanks to Kinnan again for that as well. Kinnan set that up for us and managed it, and we had an absolute ton of people on that forum, fans who were constantly throwing out ideas. It became a very valuable source of inspiration for us, and I mined it all the time for ideas, and we talked about it in the office. So a lot of the characters in the new game actually were, fan inspired, or started with some idea from the fans, both in terms of them thematically and also functionally. Like they might say, hey, it would be really cool if there was a character that stole your money or dropped you down a level below. That became the Inquisitor. What's the Spanish Inquisitor? And we changed it to the Inquisitor.
Yeah, just took the Spanish off.
Yeah. Somebody got upset with us. There's a lot of that in the game industry. You got to be very careful. You're always going to offend somebody. What's that? Anyway, okay.
All right, something for the engineers. What's the most challenging part of making the game using Unity?
I'm going to get my food.
That is a good question. Certainly the most challenging part of making the game at all was making it work online. Like, we spent at least half, if not like 3/4 of the entire cycle of the game making it work online. And Unity actually has a pretty good library for doing online functionality, but you still have to do it yourself. You have to write all of it.
Yeah, no, definitely the online game was the most challenging part. I don't know if that's specific to Unity, but yeah, Unity actually made that a little easier. Is any of you guys programmers out there? Cool, what's up? So, right, Unity is written in C#, so it's managed memory. I'm just gonna kind of geek out for a second. So it's managed memory, which is great when you're programming. You have to worry about memory. It's like one less thing to think about when you're making a game. It's great if you can not think about certain things. What ended up being difficult though is when we were optimizing for the Switch, we were running into some memory problems. Mostly just we were using too much, and I found the fact that Unity hit memory was a difficult part. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And there would be hitches in the game, and having more control of memory would have really helped. I think we got it working to a pretty good state. But that was sort of my kind of biggest thing with Unity kind of getting in the way of programming ToeJam.
All right, word. Greg, what are ToeJam and Earl's day jobs?
I don't see those guys working. Did you see?
They're on our Twitter.
ToeJam would get fired in a flash because of his arrogance, and Earl wouldn't. He would just probably never show up to work. Yeah, I don't see that happening. But one of the really fun things about this game was developing their characters a lot more. We have, I'm sure you've discovered some of that so far, but there's probably more for you to discover. A lot of dialogue in this game, and our lead engineer found this dialogue system called Ink, right? Ink, yeah. Yeah, and he got all excited about it at one point and said, hey, let's add a whole RPG element, and we integrated that, and you guys can talk about that too if you want to. I don't know if anybody wants to hear that, but we ended up writing a lot of dialogue and using that. It's kind of a little buried in the game, so the whole idea was we wanted it to come out very slowly as you're playing, and just be a little bit here and there so that it would kind of keep things fresh and have little surprises for you. So, all of the friendly Earthlings can talk to you and ask you questions, and you can answer them, and they'll sometimes give you fun little surprises, like if you, you can ask them for, they'll offer you things, presents and money, but sometimes they'll ask you for things too. Like they'll ask you, has anybody said no yet if they've asked you for a present? That's kind of funny when that happens. Because usually they'll just say, oh, okay, whatever, but sometimes, like, if you say no, they'll go, okay, here, have some rocket skates, and then all of a sudden you're on rocket skates. or they'll expel your presents, or do something kind of bad to you. It's kind of funny, but we wrote a lot of dialogue for the different characters, and I really, really enjoyed that because it gave me a chance to sort of explore who they are and what their relationships are with each other. And because we added these new characters to the game, we've got, of course, Letitia and Lawanda, but we've also added in Flo, Earl's mom, and Peebo, and Geek Jam, and we even have, old ToeJam and new ToeJam, and old Earl and classic Earl, and we did that because, we weren't originally going to do that. Nathan did some really wonderful designs for the new versions and aged them up a little bit, and we thought that's what we were going to go out the door with. And then, of course, a lot of our fans are purists, and we're like, what? ToeJam's not supposed to be wearing a shirt, and why does Earl have a hat on? And no. So of course we were always trying hard to listen to the Kickstarter backers, especially, and all the fans, and so we said, okay, we'll throw in skins for the characters with classic versions. But then it created some interesting situations for the dialogue, because now all of a sudden you could have somebody playing old classic ToeJam and new ToeJam at the same time, and what did they say to each other, and how did they react to each other, and that was fun, because you'd expect ToeJam to be kind of snarky with himself, and competitive with his older version and his newer version, and of course Earl really liked his other self, and we had dialogue in there too, like when you're playing in 3 and 4 player games. If you're playing a 3-player game and you've got 2 characters, 3 characters who are together on the screen, and then one of them leaves, the other 2 characters will talk about the character that just left, and all kinds of fun situations. It's really fun to play. I like, in particular, playing games with Earl and his mom together, because they're really sweet, and she nags at him a little bit, and anyway.
What about the backstory?
Oh yeah, good point. So Ko is just mentioning there's a little secret in there that's not a huge secret, because I said it once or twice, and I'll say it again to y'all right now. Yeah. It's just we created some special dialogue that comes out in the game after you played it.
Because you've got to beat random mode a certain number of times.
Yeah, so after you played random mode, we'll say a few times, whatever that number is. And then when you're playing with, it has to be ToeJam and Earl in the game. I think it can be either the old versions or the new versions, right?
Yep.
And you can have other characters in the game too, but those two have to be in the game. And then whenever they're together, they'll say things to each other that are kind of special, and you hear a lot about their backstory and their relationship and the one time they ever had a fight and what it was about. And you get to learn a little bit more about the reason why. There's kind of another reason why they're actually here on Earth, because you think it's, and it is, because Earl pressed the button and made the black hole, and they crashed. But there's actually another reason why they came to Earth in the first place, to even show the Earth to Letitia and Wanda. And there's another reason that has to do with ToeJam, and I won't give it away because. And then once you've done that, it unlocks a little special something that's at the end of the game too, and a new character that is part of the whole family. So that was a lot of fun, creating more of the lore of who they are and their personalities. I really loved that, and was kind of sorry when we ended up writing the last dialogue and couldn't fit any more in. Yeah, I was really happy when we had that, when we decided to do the extra dialogue.
Oh yeah, it's still not in the game yet.
It's
coming.
DLC.
Yeah. Here, why don't you tell them about that? Because I'm talking.
Well, I don't know if we want to talk about that yet.
Okay.
But,
sorry, you can't talk about that.
Yeah. Well, we have some cool things in the future that we're working on, and of course, we haven't yet released the Hebo and Lamont's prize for the backers and some other stuff. So yeah. So engineers and it's Nathan. What engine did y'all use and what software for animation? So maybe you can go to the animation process a little bit.
Sure. So we use an animation software called Spine. It's fairly widely used now, at least in the indie space. But at the time, it had just kind of come out into the open. It was software that was also kickstarted. And that kind of appealed to us in a grassroots sort of way. Yeah, so it was a software that is it's a puppeting software similar to 3D. It uses custom meshes like in 3D with weighting and everything, but you use 2D sprites. So it kind of gives this interesting stretch and compress look that you can achieve in 3D, but with 2D assets. So that allowed us to do two things. One, it allowed us to make a very cartoon-looking game, while also allowing us to make a larger number of characters with far less animations than we would have had to do by hand if we had made it all in a classic traditional animation approach.
Yeah, explain a little how we show bones.
Oh yeah, so we built or we decided on a number of different skeletal structures for the different characters, and then we kind of designed the characters around those constraints. So there are a number of characters like the more humanoid types, like the mad inventor, the sick kid, the selfie lady, Boogie. They all shared the same skeleton, and so a lot of them have similar animations. They do vary slightly, but for the most part, they're at least internally they were a single group. And then there's
Flo and Earl.
Right, yeah, all the main characters we sectioned them off into Earls, ToeJams, and yeah, right, yeah, and Letitia and Wanda share the same stuff.
And Pivo has his own special.
Yeah, so Pivo was interesting because we didn't plan on having him initially. He only had one facing, and he was going to run the rhythm game. And then we kept hearing from fans that they wanted to have Pivo as a playable character, and it just happened to land at a very specific time when my plate had kind of it wasn't completely overflowing, and so we just decided, okay, we'll make him a pleasant character. So he came at the end of the character process. So his skeleton is by far the most complex and the cleanest. Yeah, Peebo is like the ultimate character in this game. And then that's the animation side at least.
Oh, sorry, that just reminded me. So I'm interested. What characters do you guys like to play in the new game so far? And I don't know, you might not have unlocked them all too, but does anybody have any favorites that they like to play? Like who likes to play like Letitia, for example? Letitia, yeah. Well, she's cool. She's pretty powerful because she has like extra power with all tomato presence, like even tomato rain. So she's probably the most potent offensive character in the game. And she's fast, yeah, right. I play Luanda a lot because she's got really balanced stats. Yeah, does anybody else like to play Luanda?
I'd love to.
Yeah, I really like the way her stats balance out. She's fast and she's got good inventory and yeah. And then of course, let's see. Well, there's Classic Earl versus, New Earl. Who's Classic Earl? I play Classic Earl. Yeah. And then New Earl. Who does New Earl? Okay. And then Classic ToeJam. Okay. And New ToeJam. All right. Has anybody unlocked Flo and played with her yet? No. Flo? Yeah. Or how about Peebo?
He's slow or small.
Peebo is slow.
Way too slow.
He's so lucky though.
I would get screwed when you do the promotions.
Yeah.
I didn't get a promotion on the speed stat until like level 18. So I super thing would outrun me.
Yeah, well, very sad.
I'm going to Sunflower City, the Sunflower area. It's like, no one's here, bro.
Yeah, right. It's a little more challenging playing Peebo, that's true. But and then Geek Jam. Yeah,
Geek
right.
Jam.
Yeah, Geek Jam.
Well, you already kind of mentioned the Unity stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the programming language or programming?
There's one funny thing too. So we were talking about bones. Sometimes I'll go in and like look at the rigs because we'll be debugging something, and I'll notice bones in like really weird places. Like Peebo's chain's got bones that run through it, like so it can like wiggle. Thought that was kind of neat. Any other weird bone places?
I'm sure. There's a lot of weird hat bones.
Hat bones. Yeah, everyone's got this weird bone sticking out of their head like this, so their hat can move.
Letitia's
Oh, her antennas, yeah. Letitia and Luanda share a rig, and so like when you're playing as Luanda, she has these like dangling bones coming off of her head. I mean, it's invisible; you don't see it in the game, but it's funny when you're like looking in the back end and stuff, and you see how it's all used.
Yeah. The Lula skeleton is really interesting because all of like the whole arm is just full of like 10 bones.
Yeah. There's like 8 bones, right?
Yeah, you do this.
Right.
You want to say something about Unity?
No, I was going to say on the concept of bones, though, there was a lot of time early in development when we were still kind of working on the system to have the different character skins work correctly. Letitia and Lawanda's hair and hats and everything would like always get mixed up. So you're like playing one and you have like the hair and the hat of the other, and it'll like show up and randomly disappear. And it was really funny.
Or Earl's face?
Oh yeah, There's this one time where Earl got an extra face stuck like out here, and like no matter what you were doing as Earl, there'd be just like him like this like floating by. Yeah, there's a lot of really funny stuff like that. Yeah. We have a GIF of it somewhere where we can post it.
All right.
I have another question.
Yeah?
Okay. Here's another question for you guys, and you can just kind of shout out your answers if you want. What's the most aggravating thing that's happened to you in the game? Like when do you just want to scream?
Actually, mine was whenever I was trying to get out of the water, I ended up falling through the earth and staying in the water, and I drowned until even though I was going around, I drowned until I died.
That's pretty good.
That's not
Yeah.
Alright, so the aliens are actually like UFOs in the game. Why are they bad guys? There's one that's like red.
Oh, yeah, what?
Why is that possible?
Yeah, that's
the
a
aliens
good
should be
idea.
on your side.
Well, yeah, there's different planets. Not all
Yeah,
aliens are in the same
on.
place.
Yeah.
That guy's not from Bucketshot.
That's mean though.
Yeah. He's got spikes.
I know.
Yeah, that's true. And he didn't actually start off to be mean because the Alien Jeff inspired character, the UFO, changes your stats, and it's just weird, like it mutates you, right? So that's not especially bad. In fact, I don't know, has anybody done that on purpose? I do that sometimes. Because you know you can heal yourself with that anytime you want to. Just go to the wizard and you know you can just reset it. Also, well, not that you want to do it this way, but dying resets it too.
Or the carrot man if you do promotion.
Oh, that's right. Getting a promotion resets it too. So it's kind of fun to see what happens when you do that. So you should play with that if you haven't. Anyway, and then we just cranked that character up and it became scary.
So what's the red one's called? If the green one's Alien Jeff, who's the red one? Barbarian UFO.
Oh yeah, Barbarian Alien.
He's never called Jeff.
We need to name him. We should name him here.
It demotes you. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It demotes you.
That's what it did.
Yeah, that's pretty harsh.
He's like,
Okay, anything else like aggravating or game one too? Like when did you want to throw your controller?
Well, just the randomization sound that gives me PTSD.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like really. Yeah.
Just all my presents, don't know what they are now.
Right. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
We were talking to a fan earlier this week who said that his 8-year-old son would, like when he didn't like his set of presents, he would just like find major randomizers and use them to like change out all of his presents. And then his dad was like, "What the hell, dude? Now I don't know what any of the presents are." And he's like, "Yeah, but at least mine don't suck anymore." So.
I really wish the armored inner tube was usable on land, and I was kind of surprised that didn't work. Like I could just be able to walk up to enemies and they would get hurt.
Have you got an amped one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the amp
Is that what it does?
Yeah, the amp one.
It gets spikes.
Yeah.
And it's the best present ever.
Yeah, that, and I spent like $50 at a mailbox to get enough presents to become a Funk Lord.
Nice.
It takes a long time. And then right before I enter the elevator to the last level to get the present, I get demoted.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know that Alien did that. I thought it was the one that just reset your stats, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah. Okay. What planet are ToeJam's parents on?
Right. So somebody actually, like, where did you hear that? That was in, yeah, so I'm trying to remember, because that is part of the story that, but I can't remember where that got conveyed. Was that in this game? Like, who asked that question?
Yeah, it's when you do the thing with the secret ending when they're talking to each other, when ToeJam and Earl are talking, one of the things he said.
Oh, okay, so I did put that in there, yeah.
Different planet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, well, I don't, okay.
That's the next one.
That right. They left for a while, and that's why ToeJam and Earl, well, I won't just say the one little part of that story. They ended up growing up together in the same house because ToeJam got taken in by Earl's family, and when his parents went off, and he's sort of dealing with some of those issues, you know.
Didn't you say that like ToeJam's family's like all off and like it kind of like went off to a space vacation?
Low battery.
A little bit. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, a band. Yeah.
Not gonna get to my name.
Yeah, that's kind of.
The Home Alone's your name.
Yeah.
It's in there twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a little. a little, right, come from like upper middle class in Earl's family before, and
It's KYE.
What happened to the elevator beats?
Oh, yeah.
Elevator beats.
Oh.
The card says.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's the start. Start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, our elevator didn't animate that way.
Copyright.
No. Yeah. Why not, Nathan?
I mean, part of it was speed. We, you know, the elevator sequence in the first one took a really long time. So part of it was we cut down on the
Right. That's exactly right. It was very intentional.
It was a double-bladed sword. I missed the beeps, but I do enjoy it being shorter. Because it was like.
Okay. Well then, good answer.
We have this is a bra card. So the good thing about the bra card is that if you actually check under your seats, 5 seats have a wiener card under them, and you'll win one of these wonderful Lapis rockets. There you go. That's one of them right there. There's a wiener. That's a bra moment right there. There's 4 more bra moments like this. Alright. 3. We got 3 bra moments going on. 2 more, 4. 1 more. Someone get the last one? Is it? So there's another one out there somewhere. Well, the 4 people who won, feel free to come up and grab it in the ship if you want. So there is one more. It might be like stuck on the seat.
Sorry.
There you go. Alright. That's 5 bra moments.
Lucky bras.
What was that?
Lucky bras.
There's so many bra moments in the story. Maybe there's going to be unlimited bra moments. And don't forget everybody who came. We also have some gift bags at the door. Feel free to put them whatever you want. There's also some like G Fuel cups and shirts and stuff too. All right, here's a question that Nick. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if you can answer this one, but maybe you can. How close did ToeJam and Earl get to being the Sega mascot?
Oh, spicy. Yeah, we were just actually talking about that outside a little bit. We developed this game for SOA, Sega of America. That's, you probably know, SOJ, Sega of Japan, is the parent company of SOA. SOA, they were a really new, they were a new entity when we started. They were just getting off the ground, and we were one of their first titles. They were just like, I don't know, they had like 15 or 20 people there at the company, and we had some real supporters in the company. Hugh Bowen, who signed the contract and got us off the ground, and Scott Burfield, who was our producer, were big champions of the game, and they loved it, and so they were pushing hard inside of SOA to have us be the mascots, and then they got Tom Kalinske and other folks there at Sega, Al Nilsson and Madeline Schroeder, all sort of behind the idea, and then they told us that they were gonna try to make that happen, and we were super excited about that, but it wasn't too much. As I recall, because this was a long time ago, but it wasn't too long after that where we got some cold water tossed on that idea, because SOJ just nixed that. They just said, no, we've got another character that we have in mind for that spot, and you all know who that was. And Mario. I think that was in large part due to the fact that Sega of Japan just didn't really get ToeJam and Earl, didn't really resonate with them. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's a little too, too American, too like, hip urban, and just too weird and too like off the wall. So yeah, we didn't, we weren't like crushed. We hadn't. It didn't seem that real to us. We were just excited about it, and yeah, in a parallel universe. ToeJam and Earl, the mascots.
I would have gotten like 18 games.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a parallel universe, like ToeJam and Earl 2006. It's real bad.
ToeJam and Earl, boom.
Yeah, ToeJam and Earl, boom. What did you and Mark work on at EA?
That's an interesting question. How does anyone know we worked at EA? That's amazing. Yeah, so we did work at EA for a while. This was, not that long ago. It's funny because I worked at EA a long time ago. That's where I started my career, back in the early 80s doing Starflight 1 and 2 and Caveman and Olympics. And then, I went off and I did other games, including ToeJam Earl 1 and 2, and I did Orly's Draw Story with Mark. We did end up at EA at the same time later on when I was working on Spore and on The Sims 2, and Mark was there being a producer. And I'm not really sure what product he was working on. And then I ended up leaving, and he stayed there and worked there for another 6 months or so. I think he might have been, what was he doing? Yeah, I don't even remember what products they had him on, but yeah, I don't remember even ever saying that to anybody. This is weird and interesting. Yeah, somebody did their research.
All right. How did the elevator music from Lego Island get in the game?
Public domain.
Public domain library, right? They got it from the same place we got it from.
Yeah.
So we didn't get it from there. We both pulled it from the same public domain library.
Well, I think it's like a package of things you would buy.
Yeah.
It's not public, but it's a package.
Right, I imagine so. Yeah, our audio guy, we checked with him as soon as we found out that it was in some other game too. I couldn't remember it was that, but we had him check and make sure that it was all legit.
Yeah, you don't want the Lego lawyers in that dress. Put Legos on our feet. Where's ToeJam's mouth?
Oh well, I have always assumed, I've never actually examined him in close detail, but I've always assumed it's right here at the bottom of the V. There's a little flap of skin right there, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where the sound comes out of. It's either there or, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where it is. Yeah, okay, that was an intelligent question.
Where did the inspiration for the character designs originate?
That's a hard one to answer. I'm kind of digging around in my memory and my subconscious to give a real answer to that one, because I'm not sure what I saw that made them become the way they were. I did Starflight 1 and Starflight 2, and I helped out my friends Paul and Fred working on Star Control, and so I had aliens on the brain in those days. It was really so the eye stalks were just kind of a no-brainer, for ToeJam. That was kind of the more aliens have them than don't, and I knew that one of the characters, just their personalities, felt like one of them was going to be small and energetic, and the other one was going to be kind of really big and cool and slow moving. And I didn't really think, you know, there's not a whole lot of real analytical intention behind any of that stuff. It's just, they just kind of pop out, and then after the fact, you're kind of looking at your process and trying to figure out where did that come from. So I don't know, you've probably heard the story, and it's actually true. I did come up with them in a dream. I used to have, and I still do occasionally, but not like I used to, have really, really wild, bizarre dreams, and would often wake up and scribble something down, and I did dream about these two characters, and I dreamed about them having a conversation. I wrote down that conversation when I woke up. Yo, what's up? My name is ToeJam. It's my homeboy, Big Earl. Say, what's up, Earl? Yo, what's up? We're aliens from outer space. Outer space. That's about as far as I got, and then I crashed, went back to sleep, and in the morning, I looked at that, and then I started drawing them, and I didn't draw different versions of them. I just drew them once. And that's who they were, and there was some, right after that, I drew them on a cover of, I had a little Macintosh, and I drew them as I started writing about the game, and Scott Burfield found that. I didn't know that still existed. I'd long forgotten about that, and he found it and sent it to me a couple years ago, a photo of that. He actually sent the original off to some game history museum, I think it's in New York or something. Yeah, kind of funny. Anyway, it's nothing all that, you're like the only people in the world, really, that would sit and listen to 15 minutes of description of me digging around in my subconscious for where these two characters came from. But
got a couple questions from the deals or from the live stream. One is, why do they go through a washing machine right after they hit the black hole button?
oh yeah, well that's on Nathan. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah,
I think
why
it's in the
Nathan?
script.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't know either. Yeah. Maybe I did write that. Yeah, it seemed like the right thing. Yeah, none of this makes a whole lot of sense. That's part of the whole ToeJam and Earl thing. If it
makes sense, don't do it.
Kind of. Yeah.
I mean, ToeJam and Earl is basically positive chaos, right?
Yeah.
The chaos with nothing bad.
Yeah, right. It's all a little bit stream of consciousness. It's kind of like don't stress and don't think too hard. If it pops into your mind and it makes you feel good and smile, then toss it in there. And that was the general rule for ToeJam and Earl, and maybe a good takeaway for life, I suppose. It's not supposed to be terribly deep or heavy, but that's kind of the message. So in a way, maybe that's a deep and heavy message. Ooh, that just got really
damn. That's meta.
Yeah, very meta. But yeah, that's kind of, and the whole idea about just chill, relax, have fun. Don't. That's not a terribly deep message either. But in our world of stressing about everything, it's one that is worth remembering, and the ToeJam and Earl experience, both in terms of us making it, why it got made, why it is the way it is, and what I think we all hope for the people playing it, has a lot to do with that that sense of just letting go of all of the stress that you have and going with the flow of all of the craziness and the flow of all of, like you said, what'd you call it? Chaos.
Yeah. Positive chaos.
Positive chaos, there it is. Yeah, and just enjoying the ride, never knowing what's coming next, and kind of going with the flow. That is ToeJam and Earl, I think. That's what, right? Does that go fair?
Yeah. So we've got another one. In a world of small space marines and loot block shooters, sometimes you just want to chill and throw tomatoes at a dentist.
Oh.
Sorry, an actual question. Will there be any DLC?
Oh, you answer that, man.
Sure.
Well, so, you know, I don't, I mean, I guess, you know, so I came on the project about 9 months ago to kind of like, you know, in case you don't know, like originally the project was published by Adult Swim, and they're kind of doing some new direction, and so, you know, they asked if we wanted to self-publish, and I think that for a lot of reasons that was exciting for us, because, you know, going back to being indie, getting to be really creative, just do whatever. And so, you know, we published this game ourselves, and really we have to, we basically need to see how this first few months go, basically. This game took about 4 years to make, and so it was, you know, kind of a long process, and I think that one of the things that we kind of need to figure out, like we have a lot of ideas that we want to do for DLC, whether it be different modes, or different presents, or Earthlings, or different things. I think that really we just need to kind of figure out, like, A, can we get a publisher? Can we get money for that? Do we want to do a Kickstarter for that? Do we you know, is the game going to sell well enough that we can do that from game sales? But, you know, I'm really inspired by stuff like Binding of Isaac and The Dungeon, you know, games like that continue to live on and change and grow. And so, you know, I would like to see, you know, this game continue to grow. I think that people feel like there's a really, really strong base, and I think they just want more, and more tweets and downloads and fun stuff. So, I mean, that's the hope, right?
Yeah, we've got a lot of really fun ideas for DLC that have come from the team and from our backers and fans, and we're making lists of all the things we hope to be able to do. You know, one of the things, for example, that we almost got into this game, and in fact, if anybody wants to know the things that didn't make it into this game, we can tell you about those things too. One of those that got cut right at the end was endless mode. We were going to do that where, you know, very classic rogue style, since our the levels are all randomly generated anyway, we could just keep generating them and cranking up the stats for the different Earthlings, and we didn't quite make that, and that was one thing we would love to still do, and there's a whole bunch of other fun modal ideas that let you sort of take the basic parameters of the game and change them just to kind of mix it up a little bit, and kind of like some of the things some of the achievements do, or some of the power hats do right now, but it would be fun to do that. There's a whole bunch of other things we could do. Anyway, like Matt said, it just depends on how well this game does, and what people want, you know.
Yeah. How did the partnership with Limited Run Games come about?
Well, kind of your question. Yeah.
So, and this kind of ties into, you know, another question, which is like, well, how did Macaulay Culkin get involved and all that stuff? You know, basically, you know, when I came on the project, you know, because we had to self-publish it, and we don't have a publisher, you know, we had to figure out how do we get this game shipped. And so, obviously, we need money to pay people and to, you know, keep the studio going. And so, one of the things that we did is, you know, we talked to these different publishers about, hey, you know, who can we work with that really believes in the game and could, you know, help us get to the finish line. And, you know, Limited Run is really cool in that they, you know, they believe in physical, and they believe in doing really cool, unique things for collectors. And, you know, I think that our game, especially at launch, you know, I think the people who really love ToeJam and Earl are the ones who want the collector's edition stuff. You know, when we did the Genesis case at PAX West, that went really, really, really fast and got really expensive on eBay. It was not intentional, but we didn't realize how much demand there would be for stuff like that. And so even like with the Limited Run now, like it's just been overwhelming in terms of, I think that people, you know, I think that if we had just done a regular in-store thing, it wouldn't be as popular. I think that, you know, most people who are consuming it are getting it through digital download, but there is obviously the gamers who want the physical edition and, you know, want to be able to put it on the shelf and stuff like that. So that was sort of exciting for us, and you know, they've been great to work with. Like they're cool folks. We just went to their launch party last night with these cool shirts. I don't know, they just believed in the game. They really wanted to work with us. Like everyone else was kind of like, yeah, like, they're cool. Like, oh, ToeJam cool. Limited Run really, really, really wanted to work with us. And,
yeah, I mean, I was talking to them while we were still at Adult Swim. Like they were trying to hunt us down.
Yeah, and I think especially with Greg, that Greg really likes to work with people who get the brand and IP and like.
Yeah. Yeah, they were backers, for Kickstarter, which says a lot. Like that's very genuine, and they have like a lot of them there have like ToeJam and Earl posters on their walls, and they were really, really into it. And of course, how can you not like love someone that like loves your kid? Like, your kid's really good looking. Like, oh, I love you. So they were friends immediately, and Doug, the guy who runs the run, has been super supportive of us. Being an indie developer is not always easy. You've got to struggle sometimes to get over hurdles, and they've been helping us get to the end of this game. So they've been great.
Alright, well actually, so I'm quick, there's a quick questions now. This is the rumor mill questions, so you can answer these really quickly. Alright?
So, tell us about the ToeJam and Earl thing. Is that true or false?
That's funny. True or false? ToeJam and Earl. Does everybody know what the ToeJam and Earl thing is? Because I'll tell you very briefly, so this makes a little bit of sense. ToeJam and Earl. The rumor is that ToeJam and Earl were originally named ToeJam and Earl, and that I had mentioned those names to, I think I said to Mark, and then he misheard me, and that got conveyed to Sega, and then by the time I heard about it, it was too late to change them back to ToeJam and Earl, because he heard and thought I said ToeJam and Earl. That was the rumor. That is completely and absolutely not true. But I did say it, so it's my fault. And that and a few other rumors that happened mostly came about because of one night in particular when I had been answering a lot of questions, and they keep asking the same questions. Interviews are always like, how did you come up with the characters? How did you come up with the presents and the Earthlings? And after you write that for a few times, I was getting kind of punchy, and it was late, and I was just started making up stuff, and I said, I think that, for how I came up with the presents, I said, I wrote down all these ideas on Post-it notes, and I covered the entire floor with them, and then I tossed my cat into the room, and I saw which ones stuck to her, and those are the ones I used. And they actually printed that too. I didn't think anyone was going to believe any of those things, so I was kind of shocked and amazed when I saw these things in the magazine, and then I was like, uh-oh. I told Mark, I was like, Mark, should I tell them that's not true after they printed it already? And so it kind of took on a little bit of a life of its own, and I've since come clean, and I've said, yeah, sorry, that was just me. And but it's kind of funny because now it's become sort of part of the lore of ToeJam and Earl, and ToeJam and Earl have some of our fans have been asking for them as playable characters, or when you know, the stories behind who they really are. And it's kind of fun. But anyway, yeah, no, not true.
Alright. Some more rumors. The anti-funk from ToeJam and Earl 3 was originally supposed to be a Ku Klux Klan member.
Oh yeah. So sort of. James, who was I think Lamont's cousin or something. He wasn't, and he was just a little, if I remember right, not evil exactly, just a little misguided and power hungry. He there was never supposed to be a KKK member, but he did have a hat that looked suspiciously like a hood, and that was intentional, just supposed to be kind of a, who would you expect to be the nemesis of ToeJam and Earl, and it was, as you also might expect, it was a little bit too far out there, and Sega's marketing department, when they saw that, was like, no guys, that's not going out like that. So I think James ended up being bald, right? We just took the hat off. But yeah, that was in there originally. It was kind of not a terribly subtle statement, that was intended. So yeah, somebody a good bit of trivia. Somebody.
Yeah.
Well, back to Walls. Hey.
Nice.
We're ToeJam and Earl based off of Tupac and Biggie.
Oh. Not directly, no, but I did listen to a lot of that music back in those days. Yeah, I listened to more like Heavy D and Kid and Play than Tupac and Biggie. They were playing a lot in my office, and Young MC.
Herbie Hancock.
But oh yeah, and those right. So those were the rappers. But yeah, then when it came to straight up funk, then it was like Herbie Hancock and the Brothers Johnson and Sister Sledge and the Daz Band and the Gap Band and who else? Shaka Khan and of course Parliament and then Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire. And listened to a lot of. But when it came to rappers, yeah. So not really, not those. It wasn't based on those.
Was there ever? I heard a rumor there was going to be a ToeJam and Earl movie or something, or a TV show at some point.
Oh yeah, so there is there's always the hope and the possibility. We have some folks in Hollywood at the WME, William Morris Agency, who are hopefully going to be able to put something together for us. But ToeJam and Earl have been optioned a number of times in their history. Originally it was Universal, and then it was Nickelodeon, and it was DreamWorks, then it was another very small studio who nobody will have heard of, and now we just got WME trying to put something together. Most of those deals were for feature film deals that never actually happened. I don't know if you guys know much about Hollywood, but there's an awful lot of hoops you got to jump through. So just getting optioned, the first time that happens, you think, yes, I'm there, I've made it, and then you wait around for 6 months or a year, and then you find out that there's really an awful lot of different levels of approval, and they've got to attach different talent to it, and they've got to get the interest of all these different parties, and then you find out that there's other, studios are doing other properties that are kind of competing and kind of similar, and so now all of a sudden they're not interested anymore, and then they need to get, a writer with a, script that everybody loves. It just takes forever. I'm really hopeful and excited that we will somehow get a series, but you just never know. One thing that's kind of fun and interesting, though, a little bit of trivia that, are there any Rick and Morty fans here?
Yeah, woo!
Yeah, so I'm a huge Rick and Morty fan. Most of us at the office are, and one of the things I found out, when we were at, I guess it was PAX West, and we were showing our game in the booth right next to us. The Adult Swim, was showing Justin Roiland's Rick and Morty VR game, and Justin was there one day, and I went over with him with my son Tomo, who also worked on the project with us, and we went over to basically gush at Justin and sort of fan out, be fanboys, and was really really surprised to find out that he was a ToeJam and Earl fan, and he was going, no, you, and we were going, no, you, and that was a lot of fun. So I have this dream and fantasy that ToeJam and Earl will appear in a Rick and Morty episode someday, and that would be a real moment for me, for us, if that ever happens. So, anyway, I think that answers that question.
Okay, well, last rumor is, are they ever going to settle down? Are they ever going to have kids? Are they going to find, what's next for ToeJam and Earl?
It can, not time.
They're gonna settle with Milpitas.
Yeah. How old are they in general? Are they still teenagers?
Yeah. Okay. So in my mind, ToeJam and Earl were in their early teens in Game 1, I kind of pictured them being, I don't know, 14 or 15 or something like that. And in this game, we were kind of shooting for late teens, right, Nathan? Like, 17 or 18 or maybe even 19, but kind of in that zone. They do. They're aliens. Yeah. I don't, I guess it could be fun. I could imagine an old age story with ToeJam and Earl and them looking back on their lives or something. That would be a lot of fun. I haven't really.
Think about real slow.
Yeah, right. But there is no fiction yet that has been written by me or anyone that I know that takes them forward very far in their lives, and it's fun to think about, though. So those kind of questions make my imagination start to go off and wonder what their future holds for them. I do. I'll tell you I wrote up a concept for a series concept that I've put out there, and I don't know if it's ever going to get traction or not, but I'll tell you the basic idea of that, which I still think would be great, was that the Earthlings are basically like the lab rats of the universe, and they're strangely and frighteningly fascinating to all of the other aliens out there, and because we're so irrational and dangerous, Earth has been put off limits, but despite that, aliens have been sneaking in and stealing Earthlings and seeding them around the galaxy just for purposes of entertainment and experimentation, and they have then sort of infested the rest of the galaxy, and ToeJam and Earl are at some meeting where they're discussing what should be done about this and whether or not the Earthlings should be or shouldn't be exterminated, and it's decided that somebody needs to go and determine whether or not the Earthlings are capable of being rational or not. And right at that moment is when ToeJam raises his hand to go to the bathroom, and they end up getting selected to be the ones to decide whether or not the Earthlings are worthy of, allowed to stay alive, or whether they're going to be exterminated. So I thought that would be a really fun basis for a series, for a show, I don't know if that's ever going to catch on, but the whole idea being that Earthlings on all these different planets each have their own society, that's some sort of crazy, irrational version of what we are on this planet, and a lot of kind of funky music that would be sort of like social critique, and of course just crazy fun. So anyway, that's probably enough for that.
Cool. So I have two cards left here. So I'm gonna do these two cards, and then we'll.
By the way, I've never told anybody that before. You guys are the
Whoa,
first
sneak peek. First access.
Never hear that.
It's a good idea.
Good idea. Okay, so we'll do these two more cards, and then we're gonna let people get some tacos and stuff. Don't forget there's tacos and drinks. They're all included with the ticket. And hang out with Greg and sign some stuff. Okay, two last questions. Can you describe the process of getting the fourth game out? I know you had some plans and ideas for a long time, so maybe is there anything that you really wanted to get into the fourth game that you were thinking on for decades even?
Fourth game meaning this game, right? Okay. Just checking.
Just reading off the card.
Yeah. Anything that I really wanted to get into this game?
Yeah, like anything that you were like stewing on for like 10, 15 years, and you're like, oh, if I ever do another ToeJam game, gotta get that in. We didn't get the time travel.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point, Nathan. One of the original ideas for this game was we were gonna have like a time travel theme, and I'd actually kind of forgotten about that.
Yeah,
that was a ways back.
We didn't get enough money to make that.
Yeah, so a lot of people have asked, like, so what's up with this? Why is it why is that Earth? You know, it looks nothing like Earth, and it's so random. Not that having a time travel theme would make it a whole lot less random, but we thought maybe just a little bit. I had this idea that, you know, we'd have levels, and the levels would be different periods in time, and we could theme them. And
that's where the washing machine came from. I remember that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's like the last remnant of that storyline. Yeah.
Like Bill and Ted.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's right. Nathan's got a much better memory than I do. In fact, I think everyone has a better memory than I do. Yeah. So we did, we did put the caveman in there,
Yep.
and Tut, and maybe even Gandhi Ji. I kind of come out of that. So we had a few elements of that sort of did make it into the game, but that was one thing that just ended up feeling like it was going to be too much work to create all those different levels, because they have to. It's a practical thing, they have to have all their own different assets, and you can't really share elements from across them from one level to another. But in regards to that question, like what have I been hoping for or wishing for from the game? ToeJam and Earl is a collection of elements. It really is the gestalt. It's the combination of all of the pieces of it that make it surprising and unpredictable, and hopefully at times, kind of delightful, because you just never know what's going to happen. And so, unlike some other games where there's like one big mechanic that the whole game revolves around, ToeJam and Earl is one of those games where it's not really ToeJam and Earl until you have all of the pieces in place, and that makes for difficult development, because you're always saying, oh wait, we're not there yet, we've got to get more pieces in place, it'll be more fun, but that's okay, you just kind of have faith. In regards to what I always wanted for this game, I wanted more of what we had. Like I wanted more combinations, more surprise. I always felt like the number of Earthlings and the number of presents we had in the original game weren't really enough to have the level of replayability and surprise that I always wanted. I also felt like there were things I noticed after Game 1, and to some extent Game 2, that I learned about from watching people play and from listening to the fans that I didn't think about when we made the first games. A lot of that had to do with how people play together, and it's one of the reasons I asked you guys, we haven't done that yet, I hope we still can, at least kind of informally, to hear more of your stories, because one of the things I realized about ToeJam and Earl 1 was how central to the experience playing together with somebody was, and how much the game, much people valued the game because of how playful it was, which is a little bit different than gameplay, right? It's just letting people be playful with each other. So in this game, we went into it, one of the things I really wanted was to kind of focus on letting people play with each other more, finding ways for people to mess with each other and help each other, and have different kinds of playful attitudes with each other. One of the things like for example in the game, I don't know if you guys have discovered, because it's a little bit buried, is you can shout over here anytime you want to in the game, right? And call the Earthlings to you, and that lures them away from your partner and it makes no sense at all when you're playing a single player game. People might wonder why on earth you would ever want to do that, but that's why that's in there. And there we put in a whole bunch of other things. You can slap the other player when they're in love by the Cupid and snap them out of it. You can still do your high five, of course, to share life, but you can do a lot of other things now, like we put a whole bunch of two-player presents in there that let you basically mess with each other, and like the special delivery present that lets you open a present that affects the other player, or the heal present that lets you heal them. It kind of makes you vulnerable, and you sit there doing your meditation pose while you're flowing health into the other player, or the swap bodies present that lets you swap bodies, or even a lot of the single player presents, like expel presence, for example, lets you mess with the other person. You walk next to them and you open that present, and boom, everybody's presents go out on the ground. And then you open up a high tops and you run around, you pick up all of the other players' presents, right? And that's what Ko does all the time. That's his trick. That's how I learned that one. Anyway, that's, I think if I had to answer that question of what have I been wanting to do and hope for with this game, those are the two answers. It's a lot more variety, a lot more presence and Earthlings, both good and bad, and the way they function too, not just like, I'm not just talking about art and the way they damage you, but like mixing up the gameplay more that way, and then a lot more like playful two-player and multiplayer support that facilitates people laughing, and because that's where the memories come from. It's like I heard all these stories of like, we put all this effort into making the game we thought people would want to play, and then we just stuck this little thing in there where you could leap on another player and flatten them, and we just, for the heck of it, we made a present, pop out when that happened. And I don't know how many times like that was the original game, right? You guys remember that? So I don't know how many stories I've heard of people just saying, oh, me and my brother spent hours and hours doing that one stupid little thing, right? So I guess that's the answer, is making people laugh together.
You gotta add more stupid little things. Okay.
Yeah,
last question here, and then get some tacos and we'll hang out. We'll keep the live stream going too. So, last question: how did you stay true to the original, but still manage to make it feel like a new experience?
Well, I guess the kind of proof is in the pudding. So the first question is, did you feel like it stays true to the original? Because that's not really for me to say. I can say that I was trying to, but in terms of whether we succeeded or not, that's kind of for you guys to say.
What do you think?
Yes. And so, I know that's a hard question to answer in this kind of a setting. When we talk, though, when we hang out, feel free to tell me what you think, because that was the key objective of this game. It's hard, when you build a game, you've got a lot of different potential audiences you're building for, and a lot of different objectives that pull your design decisions in different directions. One of the classic design crossroads is, do you build for the fans that know and love the game, or do you build for your new audience and a new market? And that, by the way, is what happened both with ToeJam and Earl 2 and ToeJam and Earl 3, is our publisher in both cases came to us and said, we don't think the new players are going to get this, and so you need to change it. And we were like, well, we're building this for the fans, and they said, oh, no, you're not. You're building this to make money. Well, sorry, I didn't mean that to sound so bad. They put in a lot of money. They're a company. They were trying to make games to sell. So, but they did say that's the priority. They said, we don't believe that. We think that's too old school. You'll make your fans happy, but that's too small of a group. So we need to look at what's selling and what's out there in the market and appeal to those people. So on this project, it was quite intentionally, we targeted right from the beginning and said quite explicitly, we're not doing that this time, and we set about building it without a publisher. And then even when Adult Swim came in, they agreed to that right up front, that we were building this for the fans, that was going to be our guiding light, is what did the fans of the original games want, and so.
I mean, even they were backers.
Yeah, they were
That's
backers.
what I want.
That's true. Some of them were. Yeah. What's the question?
How did you keep the old school while doing new?
That's right. Thank you.
We kept referring back to the fans. That was part of it.
Yeah, that's right. So they kept us on track. Yeah, and they yelled at us, which was good. Whenever we and we shared what we were doing with them as best we could. We had like I said, the forum that Kim built for us, and we got an awful lot of feedback. We kept asking questions of them. Hey, would you guys like this or that? Do you think we should change this? Should we give you? Did you like the remember asking, did you like the permanent offensive capability we had in ToeJam and Earl 3, or would you prefer to just stick with the old school way of just needing presence? And of course they said presence. Don't give us offensive abilities. So we were like, did you feel like that game was too slow? Should we speed it up any? But the general answer was no, maybe a little bit, but don't speed it up too much. And so we kept, and we posted artwork as Nathan was doing it, and screenshots, and asked them what they thought of that, how they felt about it. And that was really, kind of our guiding light for how to. Another thing that's maybe worth saying too is just from a design perspective, when you're modifying or adding to an existing game, one of the things I discovered is that it's helpful was to kind of go to the roots of what the game was and where it came from if I was going to add to it. So, there are certain things that just don't fit in ToeJam and Earl because it's a roguelike, and certain things that do. And as you probably all know, and we talked about again outside a little bit tonight, it came from Rogue. It is under the hood. It is very much the game Rogue, not roguelike. Like I played Rogue non-stop when I was in college, and it was very much in my heart and mind, and that's what ToeJam and Earl is. So when adding to ToeJam and Earl for this game, that it was just natural to go, okay, well, what would fit with a roguelike? Stats, for example, or the characters was kind of an obvious thing that seemed to fit. Or, some of the kind of roguelike metagame ideas that we put in. Present unlocking and the power hats, those are kind of more modern roguelike ideas, but they're still things that fit in the world of roguelikes, and or even the kind of the RPG conversations that happen in the game. All of that's very much kind of in line with the sorts of things you'd expect in this style of game. So we just grew it in directions that felt like it fit organically with the roots of the game. So that was helpful kind of criteria when you're thinking about that.
Alright, so
I think I want to wrap up this part of it. Wait, what was it? Yes.
Years ago, like before the Kickstarter, I remember you did this live stream with Sega Nerds. And then you asked everyone on the live stream, what's the weirdest and most inappropriate thing in ToeJam and Earl 1? And it just blew my mind when you revealed that. Do you remember what it was? It has to do with Earl's pants falling down?
Oh, yeah.
I've never heard you mention it besides that live stream, and I thought it was a riot.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, that is funny. So I was, I think might have been giving an example too of how the different, sometimes you have, like, you call it like emergent properties or emergent events occur when you've got combinations of things that you don't really predict happen in a game. And that was one of those examples where ToeJam and Earl was never intentional, and we actually discovered it after we shipped the game. Was it after? No, it was right before we shipped the game. I think we were playing, Mark and I were playing, and ToeJam and Earl got, ToeJam got hit by the Cupid, and then they went into the elevator to go up a level, and then the doors of the elevator opened, and Earl's pants were down, and ToeJam was saying, "I love you, Earl." We never, we just couldn't stop laughing, and then said, "Okay, why not?" Just thought it was, just that kind of thing is an awful lot of fun when that happens, and when you can get surprised by your own game that you've been working on, at that point. I think it was about a year and a half, that was great. And every now and then, the fans will come along and surprise me with something that happens like that I had no idea could happen in the game. I wish I had some more examples of those. I've heard a number over the years, but I think I already told you I don't hold a memory, so I wish I'd written them all down.
Cool. So people who are watching, and just in general, we're going to be also at PAX East next week. And then on April, I think it's going to be April 7th now. On April 7th, we're going to be doing a really, really cool 90s style telethon on Twitch. And we're going to be announcing all the details about that soon, but it's going to be really weird, really unique. We're going to be announcing some more stuff during that. So keep an eye out for that. And get some tacos, have some drinks, hang out with Greg and the team. And please do not steal the 1991 ToeJam and Earl mixtape. We gotta see the board game, right? You want to see really quickly the board game?
Oh yeah. The board game's so cool. Oh yeah. Okay. So right. So
and the stuffed animals or whatever these.
Oh, these
crocheted.
These are on Etsy.
Yeah, these are on Etsy. They were made by a fan. At one point, we were like shutting down all of these unapproved, people that were making ToeJam and Earl merchandise. But as soon as I saw these, we were like, these were just so adorable.
Your heart grew 3 sizes.
Yeah, I contacted a woman that made these and said, okay, we won't shut you down if you, on the condition that you make me like 3 sets. And I bought 3 sets of them, and I sent one of them off to Mark Borsanger and Cody, the guy that did our, the bass music for us as a thank you. And then this set has stayed in our office as the mascot.
So is she still selling these on
I think
Etsy?
so. Yeah, I think she still is.
I think we have a link somewhere. We'll post it on Twitter.
Nice.
Yeah, they're amazing, aren't they? Yeah, they were much bigger than I was expecting when I saw the photo and then I got them. I was like, wow, these are awesome. But yeah, we have a ToeJam and Earl board game. I can't remember what year it was, but it was back in the early 90s when somebody at Sega said to me, hey, we may have an opportunity for a board game. Do you guys have a ToeJam and Earl board game? And of course, when a marketing department asks you that, you say, yes, of course we do. And I actually did have another board game that I had made at the time that was called Feed the Baby of Love, Many Beans Will Perish in the Flames of Hell. And yeah, actually, oddly enough, the writer of Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card, played that game, and he wrote a story about it called Feed the Baby of Love, and it's in an anthology of his. But anyway, so I turned that game into the ToeJam and Earl board game, and that's what that became. And we played it in the office over the years. It's there's only one copy of it, and it's a crazy game. It's a heck of a lot of fun. these guys tell me it's not that complicated of a game compared to a lot of modern board games. I always think of it as a very complicated game, and Will Wright gave a talk once, maybe 10 years ago now, where he was talking about, he asked me, can I take a photo of your game? Because he had come over and played it a few times. And I said, sure. I was so flattered. I said, I want to use it in a talk. And then I was sitting there in the front row in his talk, listening to him, and he was like, this is an example of a very well-designed, simple game. This is an example of an overly complex game. And then he put up a picture of my game. I was like, oh. Yeah, but anyway, I was still in a talk by Will Wright, so I was still happy back then. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a crazy game. You can take a look at it in there, and you'll see. It was done. The artwork of that was done by Peter Chan, who's he used to work at LucasArts, but he does. He's famous. You can Google him. He does artwork, art directions for a lot of big movies these days. And but I think it's not really. We thought about releasing it and running a Kickstarter. We still might, but I think if we're going to do a ToeJam and Earl board game, it would have to be a little different than that. This one is. It doesn't really have the kind of exploration you'd expect.
Well, it's a roll and move, and that's sort of not cool right now.
Right, roll and move. That's Matt says, not cool. So it's also, but it's got a. What's that? Retro. There you go. Yeah, I like that rationalizing. We should do more of that. It's it is a lot of fun. You should check it out. It's got a really fun concept in there, though, that I think is still very workable. It's not. This isn't particularly ToeJam and Earl, but it's got this idea of karma, where you can use good or I think we call them nice or nasty powers in the game, right? Anytime you want to in the game, right in the middle of anybody's turn or anything on other people, but you get karma when you use it, and then somebody else can release the Earthlings on you, and they come marching down this path, and you have a chance to pop them before they get to you. But if you don't, you have to turn over your karma cards, and if you've been good, well, then you go to Cloud City. If you've been really evil, like Chaw and Co. always are, especially Co.
Wow. It's always give you a broad moment.
Well, it makes the game a lot more fun if you've got people who are being really mischievous and mixing it up a little bit. But it's kind of fun because people's personalities come out when they play the game, because you can sort of take the good path and help other players out in the game so that you can win with karma and protect yourself that way, which is of course why we all do good things in life anyway. Or you can play it risky and just be wielding those evil powers or nasty powers, and then rack up the bad karma, and then hopefully not have to pay the price. But anyway, it was a really fun mechanic that I remember I came up with once when I was on a motorcycle riding through Nevada, and this idea popped into my head, and so check it out. We'll probably never release that game, but
I get it just for the artwork.
Well,
it's so pretty.
We're gonna, Well, I mean, if you have any questions, you can ask Greg about it. He'll be going around, and we'll take some pictures and put it up on our Twitter at ToeJam and Earl. If you guys want to see some pictures of it, and who knows, maybe if the demand is out there, we'll do it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out here. I hope you have a great rest of your night. Hang out with Greg, hang with us, type of stuff. We're going to keep the live stream going for a little bit, so you can watch us talking.
Oh yeah, and thank you too for this.
Of course. I'm so sorry. But we got to thank Cinema Exchange for hosting us tonight. And giving and donating the stage and helping us all the talent. They're awesome.
That's the biggest screen I've ever seen this game on. I gotta say.
So if you're in Milpitas and you need co-working space and you're working the film, you film stuff, check out Cinema Exchange. Yeah, do you want to say something real quick? Say hi to
Hi, I'm Chris. This is my place, the Cinema Exchange. I run it with my business partner, Kevin Brown. He's not here. He took off for the night. But ToeJam and Earl is probably one of the most impactful games for me growing up. So, of course, I jumped on the Kickstarter and had to donate. And as soon as I realized that I could get your email address and email you and say, hey, you want to do a party? I did. So, so just thank you guys for being part of this, and thank you all for coming.